Welcome to another coding tutorial, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to make a donut and super donuts. We're going to be doing a total of 3 things. First, we're going to try to understand how this shape is formed by really deep diving into the equations of a donut, or as formerly known as a torus. And then we're going to add some complexity to these equations to create super-toroid or super-torus, which are these different interesting shapes that come out of the normal base shape of a donut. And at the end, we're going to experiment with changing different variables to see what kind of other interesting things that we can make with this shape. First, let's look at the equations for a torus. These equations look a little bit intimidating, but if you're familiar with how to convert from polar coordinates to Cartesian coordinates, these should look actually quite familiar to you. In the previous tutorials on this topic, I've only worked with the 2D plane, so we only work with the x and y variables. But in this case, we will be introducing the z component because we'll be working in a 3D or the WebGL mode, since our torus or our donut is a 3D shape. Second, instead of having just one argument, theta or angle, in these equations there are 2 arguments, the first angle and the second angle, and they have it as theta and phi. And then the third piece that is different is, instead of having just one radius, they have 2. As you can see, there's the little r here and then the big R. We're going to start by 2 basic equations of converting from polar coordinates to Cartesian coordinates. Let's define those. So let x equals to r times cosine of angle, and let y equals to r times sine of angle. And I'm going to declare r as, how about 100? And then let's do angle, start at 0. And then first I'm going to draw an ellipse, and this ellipse is going to be at the center of the canvas. And the ellipse function takes in a total of 4 arguments. The first 2 are the x and y coordinates of the center of the circle, and then the third and the fourth are the width and the height. So I want to draw it at the center of the canvas, but I want to provide 0, 0 as the 2 arguments. So what I need to do is that I need to translate the origin, which is 0, 0, now to the center of the canvas. So width divided by 2 and height divided by 2. And now we have this small circle here. Then I'm going to draw another ellipse, and now I'm going to put in the x and y coordinates that we have defined here. And how about we set it to 20? And now we have the second circle that is at angle equals to 0 and a distance r from the center of the canvas. Now, if we want to move this circle in a circular path, all we have to do is just incrementing the angle variable here. So before I do that, I'm going to set the angle mode to degrees. And then I'm going to increment it by, how about just 1 degree at a time. And then now our circle is moving in the clockwise direction. Now, instead of having it move in a circular path, I actually want to draw that path. And I can do that easily by using a for loop. And then I want to loop it from I equals to 0 to I less than 360. Right? And then now I just need to copy all of this, put it inside the for loop. And actually, I do not need this small circle anymore, and I don't need this increment. All right, let's try that. Oh, and I want to also change the angle variable here to I, and also move this translate function outside of the for loop. All right, so now we have this circular path drawn. Instead of using the ellipse function, I actually want to use a function called vertex to draw just the points. And the vertex function takes in just 2 arguments, the x and y coordinates. But if we click run now, we don't see anything because the vertex function also requires 2 additional functions. One is called begin shape, and the other one is called end shape. And as you might have guessed, this one begins the shape, and it's going to draw these vertex points, and then this one end the shape. And with these sets of functions, we can actually do a few things. So first, how about we do no fill? And how about I set the increment to 10? And as you can see here, the first point and the last point do not connect. And we can connect them easily by putting an argument inside the end shape function here, close, and this way it closes the shape. Or you can also, instead of drawing the lines, you can draw points, so you can just put the argument points in the begin shape function. And now there's all these points drawn. And because we're going to be working in 3D mode, I'm going to give in a third argument inside the create canvas function, WebGL. And then you just click run. So with WebGL mode, actually the origin is at the center of the canvas already, so we don't actually need this translate function. All right, and you can also see that the points are now a lot more thicker than previously. Let's continue making a donut, but before we go, I'm going to change some of the variable names. So let's change from R to R1, and also instead of I here, I'm gonna call it theta. All right, so everything is still the same. Perfect. So if you look at this diagram here, you can see that the distance R1 is the distance between the center of a donut to this circle here. But we actually want to draw another circle, and this circle is what is going to give our donut its fluffiness, right? The meat. So this second circle has a different radius. Let's call that R2. And to get the x and y component of this second circle, we'll be breaking it down by x and y components using trigonometry, the same way that we did when we drew the first circle. The x component will be R2 times cosine of angle 2, and we'll call this angle phi. And then the y component will be R2 times sine of phi. But please be aware, because we're now working in a 3D mode, actually the y component is the z component in this case. Now let's add the x component of that second circle to our equations here. So what we need is R1 plus R2 times cosine of phi. Same thing for this part. All right, so we don't need this angle anymore. I'm going to declare R2 to be 50, and then let's do phi start at 0. So if we click run, and you can see that the radius is just larger. Why is that? And that is because when phi equals to 0, cosine of 0 is what? It's 1, right? And so this expression outputs R1 plus R2, or the maximum. So instead of actually just giving it at 0 here, how about we write another for loop? And then let's set phi equals to 0 if phi is less than 360, and then we increment it by also 10. And then we're gonna put all of this inside the inner nested loop. All right, let's click run. Okay, so you can see that now we have that second circle, but you can see that it is just a line, and that is because we're only draw it in the x and y plane right now. So in the WebGL mode, we actually can use a function called orbit control, and the argument you can put in 1, 1. So if I click run now, then I can move this around. So the arguments here dictates the sensitivity to the mouse action here. So you can change it according to how sensitive you want. As you can see here, if I move it 90 degree like this, there's no meat, the meat that we want. So what do we need to do? We need to add the z-axis. So let z equals to R2 times sine of phi, right? Based on that diagram. And then within the vertex function, it can take in the third argument as well. So let's put z in there. And ta-da! Now we get the donut that we want. Perfect. There are actually 3 types of the basic torus shapes. There is the ring torus shape, there is the horn torus shape, and then there is the self-intersecting spindle torus shape. And these all depend on the relationship between R1 and R2. So the donut shape that you're familiar with is the ring torus shape, where R1 is greater than R2. So if R1 and R2 are equal, this is the horn torus shape. And If R1 is less than R2, this is called the self-intersecting spindle torus. So you can see that it intersects, and that's why you can see this shape inside here. And that is really cool. Now let's make some super-toroid. So what are super-toroid? So as you can see from this image here, we have a donut at 1 and 1 here. So what are these ones, right? And then we have different shapes here. All of these have the basic shape of a donut, which is it has a hole inside the shape, right? But the geometry are a little bit different. And the numbers that you see here for S and T's, they're basically the powers that you need to raise the equations, sine and cosine, from the basic equations that we have to that specific power. And to raise this sine and cosine function to a different power, we cannot just multiply, for example, like cosine times cosine. We need to use these set of equations here. So SGN here, based on this article, is a sine function or a signum function, which is a function that returns the sign of a real number. All right, and then we need to also multiply this by, and these two lines here is an expression for an absolute number, right? And then this is the power that we want to raise it to. First, how about we write a function to do just that? I'm gonna call it xn, and we're gonna give it 2 arguments. So the first one is x, and x is gonna be the sine or the cosine function that we want to raise it to the power of something. And then the second argument will be n, so that is the power that we want to raise it up to. All right, and then I'm going to declare xn to be equals to sine, right? The signum of x times absolute of x to the power of n. But we can't actually use this expression here. We need to use the function called pow for power. And then pow function takes in 2 arguments, what you want to raise it to, and then the power. So end. And actually we cannot use the function called sine. p5.js doesn't have it. We need to use a math class within JavaScript. So you need to put in math dot. All right, so this is exactly the equation that we saw in that Wikipedia article. Then how about I comment out the orbit control first, and then let's declare S and T. So if we go back to this article, there's S and there's T here, and if you come down, S is the power that we want to raise the sine of phi and cosine of phi. All right, so S is for sine of phi and cosine of phi. So S is for this one, right? So how about we also declare, actually might be easier to see. So I'm going to declare A, B, C, D. This might not be necessary, but it will be easier to look at. So A will be, how about cosine of theta? And then B will be sine of theta. And then C will be cosine of phi. And then D will be sine of phi. And then S will be the power that we want to raise C and D. And then T will be the power that we want to raise A and B. Let's set it to 1 and 1 for now. And then I'm going to declare 4 more variables. So AN is going to be the function here, right? XN. So XN of A to the T power, right? And then Bn is going to be xn of B to the T power. Cn is going to be, and this one is going to be to the S power. Then D is going to be D to the S power. And then what you need to not forget to do, first, actually we need to put all of this inside the nested for loop. That is because theta and phi are only defined inside here. And then we need to put AN, BN, CN, and DN instead of all of this. So this will be C, this will be D, this will be A, and this will be B. Okay, if we click run now, it should just look the same. All right, let's also comment out this, comment in. Okay, and I'm going to change it back to a ring torus. Okay, how about we just pick a random one? How about s equals to 1.92 and then t equals to 0.67. 0.67, 1.92. Okay, 0.67 and 1.92. We forgot to return x of n here. No? Oh, it is cn, an. And there you go. Okay, how about we go back to 0.67 and 1.92. All right, so now you can just look at different super-torus equations or variables here. You can play around with the different shapes that create these super interesting super shapes. Now to the last piece, I want to introduce a new variable, angle, and I want to put this angle variable inside the sine and the cosine functions that we already have. This is what I usually do at the end of a sketch by introducing new variables or changing the different variables here and there, because sometimes you get to experiment and see things that you don't initially imagine that you could get. So let's start by setting a variable angle to 0, and how about we add angle to this piece here, and then we increment angle by 1. Interesting. How about we add it to the next one? And the next one, and the next one. Wow. This is a pretty fun tutorial that shows you how you can start with making something quite basic and then start adding to it some more complexity to create something quite interesting. Give this one a try.